Welcome to VetNet. This morning's podcast will focus on human resources in the military versus human resources in the civilian sector. There are a number of skills developed by military leaders and human resource personnel that transfer nicely into human resource careers outside of the military, and we'd like to take a few minutes to discuss those. The O2O VCTP program is here to help transitioning service members bridge the gap and achieve their competitive potential in pursuing careers in human resources. Today's special guests are Jordan Murphy, retired U.S. Army Human Resource Specialist, senior professional in human resources, and Jordan has a host of other valuable HR-related skills. We also have Master Sergeant Jeremy Meering, military outreach officer for the Training with Industry program, HRCI. Be moderated by the O2O VCTP program's very own Ken Mays, the program manager out of Fort Bragg. I am AJ Flarkowski. I'm an active duty veteran with 11 and a half years of service, currently serving in the Army Reserves. I am currently also serving as a project manager here at the IVMF in support of all of our programs and services. So with that, Ken, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thanks, AJ. Can you all hear me?
Loud and clear.
Okay, great. I'd like to welcome Jordan and Jeremy as well for participating in the podcast. We have a host of questions that we're going to go through, but even before we get into that, I'm going to start with the introductions. Go ahead and we'll start with Jeremy. Jeremy, just give us a brief introduction and an overview of what you actually do at the HRCI.
All right, good morning. Master Sergeant Jeremy Meering. Been with HRCI for about 4 months, going on 4 months now. Primary duty here is to get the word out about HR certifications to the military community. Let them know the benefits of having an HR certification, and then also providing them with ways to get it paid for other than having to come out of pocket.
All right, thanks. Jordan, at this time, if you could just give us an overview of what you do and your background.
Excellent. Thanks, Ken. Thanks, AJ, for having me. So I did 20 years active duty as an HR warrant officer. Over the last 10 years as an HR warrant officer. I certified as an SPHR 2014 while I was deployed to Kuwait. And since my retirement, I now work as a job search coach, networking coach, and help individuals get through the interview process using my HR insider background information. So I work with veterans and non-veterans alike, helping prepare them for their next role, whether inside the company or for new companies.
All right, excellent. Thanks a lot. And my name is Ken Mays. I am the installation program manager at Fort Bragg for the Onward to Opportunity Veteran Careers Transition Program. Here we are located, we're co-located with the Soldier for Life program, and we actually have an office at the Career Resource Center, which is located on Fort Bragg. And what we primarily do, gentlemen and audience, is we give transitioning service members, as well as veterans and military spouses, as well as select reservists, the opportunity to pursue professional certifications in those top-notch industries such as HR, project management, and definitely information technology. Today, we're going to focus on the human resource certifications. There are so many different certifications out there, 9 that I'm aware of, and I'm sure there might be a couple more out there. But we're going to focus on some of the aspects of the differences between the civilian human resource profession and the military human resource profession. Primarily, we're going to be talking about the Army HR profession, but true to fact, all the HR professionals actually go to school down at Fort Jackson at the Soldier Support Institute down there. So, Jeremy, first question that I would like to ask you is, what inspired you to actually work in the HR career field?
Truthfully, Kenneth, there wasn't much inspiration to it. When I was coming in, I wanted to be an MP, but I found out that I was colorblind once I got to the MEP station. So I had 2 choices. They told me that I could either wash people's underwear or I could do their paperwork. And, I picked the paperwork. even though it wasn't something I want to do, it's something that I've been committed to for 16 years now, and just keep on driving on.
All right, thank you. What about you, Jordan? I see you transferred over from the enlisted side, but you had quite a bit of experience in HR in the Army. Talk to us about what inspired you.
So really what inspired me, Ken, I originally worked in some combat arms just for a short time, about 2.5 years, an opportunity presented itself. I was active duty through the Active Guard Reserve program, which is in every state territory has a National Guard, and I was part of the Illinois Army National Guard's Active Guard Reserve program. I was presented an opportunity when I was 19 years old to be part of this program, and I learned very early on in my career that I had a knack for aligning the right people to the right job at the right time to help organizations exceed their goals, and just from there, it kind of just cascaded into positions throughout the HR spectrum.
All right, excellent. Well, what inspired me, gentlemen, is I initially enlisted in the Army as a signal soldier. I was communications electronics technician. I did that for about 15 years, and then I was DA selected to become a part of the U.S. Army Recruiting Command. That was probably the one experience that changed my life, and it actually gave me the insight as to how it actually feels to help people. So I decided to shift my formal education from communications over to human resources. And after 11 years as an Army recruiter, I retired and I got a chance to work as a human resource generalist. And the weird thing about it all is that I actually am a graduate of the Veterans Career Transition Program. I learned of this program back in 2014. So it just kind of helped me to develop the skills that I have in the human resource environment. And I will always say that I will continue to be a student of human resources because it's an ongoing process in order for you to stay relevant in today's career fields. And since we're talking about relevancy, Jeremy, talk to me about some of the ways that a military HR or a civilian HR professional can remain relevant in a career field that's constantly changing.
Okay, it's about mastering the competencies of HR, the commitment to the continuing education, and a person building their brand. Certifications show the true commitment to a career, and so I like to paint a picture when I'm out talking to soldiers. Is a lot of people will go get a degree, maybe mid-career or something like that. And they'll finally finish it, and they'll continue and do their 20 years and retire. And what you still have from that degree, let's say it's an HR degree, you're not going to maintain what you had, in your head 10 years ago. And also being able to keep up with the changing laws and regulations with stuff. So using the certifications themselves to, show people that you are currently understanding what is going on in the HR field. And, it definitely shows to potential employers that you're, committed to a profession by getting that. So yeah, definitely building the HR competencies, just knowing that stuff by heart, the commitment to continued education, and then, building that personal brand, being that person that everybody's seeking out to get the right answer that they want.
All right, extremely competitive career field nonetheless. Man, yeah, some great points. Thanks a lot. Hey, Jordan, many of the skills that we have as HR professionals, whether military or civilian, they're kind of transparent and they carry over from one entity to the other. When you were pursuing your certification and or your military, your civilian employment path, what was some of the major gaps that you was able to identify?
Ken, the biggest gap that I found upon my transition from military to private sector HR is in compensation and benefits delivery, or design and delivery. The reason for that is just part of the organization of the United States military. At almost every level, compensation and benefits is an administrative task. It's not an executive level task. We're not designing and delivering these comp and benefits programs where we're doing salary research and benefits research to identify what is the greatest draw to bring the best talent to the organization, because that's done at the congressional level, not at the field level where most of us work. So but compensation and benefits is, if you're going to pursue a career in human resources post-military, something that I strongly encourage everyone to read about and get as much practical experience as possible through an internship or volunteering somewhere prior to leaving the service.
All right, thank you. Great answer. Jeremy, I know you deal with a lot of different service members at various levels of their career, and I know the Certification Institute offers entry level, intermediate level, senior level, international, global certifications. How can an individual know which certification is best for them based on their experience, their civilian education, and their desire to transition into HR?
All right, Kenneth. Well, the service members really have to look at what the exams are going to cover. A lot of the exams that we have here, they have the content outline of exactly what percentage of the test is going to be covered in certain situations. And, you know, just because a person meets the prerequisites to sit for an exam, it doesn't mean that they're prepared for it. So, you know, going out and finding practice exams for the level of certification could be beneficial. Talking to, you know, people who have completed the exam, you know, recently. Ultimately, it's the comfort level for taking exams that are going to measure your HR experience and knowledge you have gained both on the job and through formal education.
All right, great, great. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You got to know what it is you want to pursue and what the requirements are going to be. So, Jordan, I have an interesting question for you, sir. I'm going to give you a hypothetical situation. Let's say I am a Command Sergeant Major, 42 series. I've been in the Army 25 years, and I'm getting ready to transition, and I have aspirations to be a human resource professional. And because I have a master's degree, I feel like I should take a SPHR. However, I've never worked a civilian job in my life, just the military. What advice would you give me towards selecting a proper certification for me?
I would say in this instance, because there's not as much, or as you said, no experience in private sector HR, to really go into it at the PHR level for certification, because that has a lot more of the core fundamentals. So you're senior level employee, but you don't have the requisite experience in the field that you might be able to seamlessly transition and make it past a probationary period, if you will, doing the HR side, because you don't have that experience. So the PHR is a lot of the building blocks for that. Make it through that, understand more of the middle to upper level information that goes on in private sector HR. And then from there, after you gain experience in the private sector and HR a year or two, then possibly look at doing the SPHR.
Okay, all right. So you kind of make it progressive, if you would, if I understand you correctly. Start at the intermediate level, and then after a few years of civilian experience, progress to the senior level?
That's correct, because it's not just about the test taking. If you're a great test taker and you can pass that, it's really understanding, because there are a lot of similarities, but there are a lot of differences, and getting in at that like middle level and understanding that, and going in for the certification route that level. So it's not required to take the certifications in a progressive level, but it could bode better for your career path if you start with the PHR, understand that, and then move to the SPHR once you have a few years of experience in the private sector after leaving the military.
Okay, yeah, I have an additional follow-on question then. In a conversation that I had with some civilian HR professionals, a phrase came up. exercised our due diligence, did some research, and one of the civilian professionals, not to bash or minimize the military HR experience, but it was said that military HR professionals who are transitioning have, they may lack business acumen. Can you touch on that a little?
Well, it really and yeah, absolutely. So what's really important, what we don't deal a lot with, there are a select few people who really get into the financial side of it. Everything in business, if you're in a for-profit industry, has to do with money. In the military, we just, Congress writes a check at the beginning of the year, and we look to see if we can spend all of it so we can get more next year. Well, it's not that way. So it's knowing how the business side, the financial side ties into that, and where to save money as much as possible so that you have more money. So it's on the business side of it. You have to really know your business and how all of the cogs and the gear work together. Similar to with the military, how you have human resources and operations and logistics and how they all work together. Once you're in the private sector, especially in HR, is knowing how all of those business units work together to be successful, and getting out there and talking to the people in those business units so you understand what they're dealing with and how you can approach the human resources component side of that when dealing with that. And if you don't know how the business runs, you won't be as successful as that HR representative who gets out on the floor, if you will, and understands every finite aspect about the business and the financial side of it.
Yeah, actually, cross-functional training. You have to immerse yourself in every aspect of the business. Yeah, because as an HR professional at the SPHR level, or even at the PHR level, you may be given an opportunity to sit at the round table with all the stakeholders, and you have to understand the business in order to understand what their needs are going to be. Excellent. I appreciate your answer on that. Jeremy, I would like to ask you, you deal with people on a daily basis, and we all know that the people business can be somewhat challenging at times. Can you explain to me and, briefly how understanding different communication styles can play to your advantage as a transitioning military HR professional over to the civilian HR profession?
I think I got your question. And if I don't, please stop me. So what we look at with the communication is, what we our lingo in the military or in the Army. We have a very specific thing that does not transition to the civilian life or the civilian world itself. So dipping your toe into these type of certifications will help you, especially I would believe when you're writing up that first resume, getting ready to put it out there, and so you're not actually doing that Army speak, but you're able to translate the stuff over into what potential employers something that they can actually understand.
Yeah, excellent answer. One of the things that I've come across in my studies is that a lot of organizations now are recruiting for skill set versus recruiting for positions. It's kind of like a draft. Like you want to hire a LeBron James and then you want to build a team around them. And a lot of organizations are starting to do that. And this is why it is so important to ensure that you have the KSAs that the organizations are looking for, the knowledge, skills, and abilities that they're looking for, because they may be looking to bring you into the organization and build a team around you because they already know that you have leadership experience. And I think it's very important, as you mentioned, you have to understand HR speak, and you have to be able to transition from our traditional military jargon. I've been retired almost 4 years now, and I still speak bits and pieces of jargon, but it's part of you. You can't do something for 26 years and let it go overnight, huh? Jordan, question for you, sir. How can any type of certification enhance your career post-military?
I think it helps to demonstrate the depth and breadth of your knowledge. So it really helps out when you can demonstrate you have the ability, not just in the military, but in the private sector as well, to bridge that gap. And I've done a lot of work with HRCI. They wrote an article about me right after I certified. It's just, and we talked about, just briefly, you mentioned on the jargon, is knowing the difference and really getting in there. And the certification side of it, and Jeremy and I were speaking about it prior to coming live, is demonstrating your breadth of knowledge in the field. So it's not just, military HR, private sector HR. You really know both, and it's the translation of what we do. And we spoke briefly about how there's probably about an 80% similarity in the functions and the tasks we do. It's the language we use to describe what we do in military HR versus private sector HR. So having that certification helps bridge that knowledge gap, and call it a language gap, if you will, between what we describe in the military and what we describe in the private sector as being as what the tasks are.
Right. Excellent. Yeah, I see Jeremy shaking his head there as he's saying that he actually agrees with that. So, Jeremy, I have a question for you. I know, well, before even we go to Jeremy, AJ, we have any questions in the chat room that we can address?
Right now, Ken, there's been some comments on what you guys have been discussing, mostly agreeing, but there hasn't been any questions that populate. I did put a note out there if they do have any to ask them, so I'll let you know if anything pops up.
Excellent. So, Jeremy, moving right along, I have another question for you, and give me some insight on this. We all know that information technology is transcending across every industry out there. If you are not computer savvy or cell phone savvy, iPad savvy, chances are you're going to find yourself left behind. And this has had an enormous impact in the human resource industry. I remember while working as a generalist, we switched over to online onboarding, where, the only time you will see people will be, once they've gone through the entire hiring process and they showed up for the first day of work. And that is, of course, after the interview part. But let's talk about briefly how IT plays into your ability to, enhance your learning. What do you need to study? What are some places you need to go in order to be able to keep up with the advancement of IT in the human resource environment?
Okay, I'm not really sure if I understand the question too much. Could you say it again for me, please?
Yeah, let me rephrase it. We know that IT is playing a big part in HR. In some cases, it's taking away a lot of the personal interaction in HR and is making it all virtual. What are some things that an aspiring HR professional can do to make sure that they can stay relevant when it comes down to the advances of IT and the human resource process?
Okay, so I know one thing that the Army AG Schoolhouse has going right now is those certifications and Microsoft programs that they have out there. So again, I know we're talking about HR certifications, and that's one thing I keep bringing up. But it's using what is available to you out there to get the training in those systems to broaden your knowledge base about what is used for HR, and kind of putting that in your toolbox, and it's something that you can use later to help out your career.
Yeah. Jordan, you want to elaborate on that? What are some of the platforms where a person can advance their IT experience as it applies to HR?
It really boils down to self-development. If it's not going to be provided to you, you have to go out and find it. Some of the different platforms I've used in my self-development with HR, and I did some PMP work as well, is through LinkedIn Learning, YouTube videos, and Skillport, through, especially with the military. I know all branches of service have access to Skillport. Talk to your training sergeant or whatever the equivalent it is for your branch of service if you don't know how to get onto the Skillport learning platform. but there are thousands of courses you can take, everything from PMP preparation, PHR, SPHR, and APHR preparation, Microsoft Office certification. They're all online learning. There are thousands of courses available, and I recommend that to anyone in the military, is to go out and do those Skillport learning courses, because they may also have courses available for these training IT programs and systems that are used in the private sector, because it's not only for the military to use.
Okay, great. Right. You got something, AJ?
I was actually, Ken, just thinking about the fact that we utilize Skillport for our systems here. If there was any recommendations you may have for somebody coming in of interest to sit down with you for, not necessarily an orientation, but just to speak with you about the opportunities within O2O VCTP, if there's anything you would recommend for them based on your experience as a program manager and also just going through VCTP as a student.
Hey, great question. A lot of times we have individuals that come in, and we do a pretty good job of identifying their needs and interests. That's very important in the beginning of our interaction, because we need to understand where they are trying to go in order for us to help build that path for them. Some of the resources that we utilize, of course, our training is provided on Skillsoft, so they'll have access to that. But we also have connections to a lot of the certification institutes that are out there, whether it be project management or human resources, or even some of the other information technology certifications. We give them access to those links so that they can do some self-development, as Jeremy and Jordan basically have mentioned previously. Self-development is the key. You have to commit wholeheartedly, maybe even if it's only an hour or two. Go to websites such as Harvard Business websites. You can learn everything that's going on out in the business environment. If you're a member of the SHRM chapters or the national chapter for the Society of Human Resource Management, they publish a magazine monthly, and a lot of times they have some of the latest and greatest concepts of human resource development and management in those magazines that individuals can take advantage of. It's all part of keeping you relevant as well. And since we're talking about certifications, we understand that it is a strong commitment when we're talking to certification. It's a significant time investment. And for some people, it can actually pose a financial hardship if they don't have resources to cover that. Now, I do understand that and know that O2O VCTP, we actually provide the financial backing for those that are transitioning and the post 9/11 honorably discharged veterans and military spouses from all other categories. But if you are a pre 9/11 veteran and you're looking for some programs, do any of you have any suggestions as to where someone who's in this category can go to get some assistance with funding for the certification?
So for the pre 9/11 service members, they still have the option to use their GI Bill. The problem with that is that it's reimbursed, so they do have to come out of pocket for the exam in the beginning. They do have to, if they're doing any preparation materials or anything like that, again, that comes out of pocket, and the only thing that they are going to pay for is that exam fee. So if there's an application fee or anything else that goes along with it, that will be a cost that comes directly out of pocket.
Okay, and I know through HRCI, occasionally they have discounts. I believe they have one right now where you get 70 or 75% off the registration fee. Is that correct?
Yeah, they have a couple going on right now. One I believe for military for the entire month. I want to say it's off the application fee. And that's the only one I can really think of right now.
Oh, okay. All right. Thanks a lot. Jordan, do you have any recommendations on that?
Am I muted? So I was going to say the same thing. HRCI periodically offers discounts. I know in the month of November, they offer a veterans discount as well. I'm actually trying to find it. It's $70 off the application fee if you apply by November 30th, 2017. So I'm looking at my other monitor. If you go to Google, if you're interested in certifying and you're a veteran, if you just go to Google and type in HRCI veteran discount, it's the first non-ad sponsored link that's on there that talks about it's a $70 off the application fee if you apply by November 30th.
Okay, all right. One other area that I want to hit on is when you're filling out the application for certification, there are particular job titles that HRCI has identified. Jeremy, can you hit on that a little bit? I think it's about 4 or 5 different titles that you can use when doing the application.
Yeah, so that we do. They have, like you said, there are 4 of them. Just the military approved position codes. So you got 094, which is just a military personnel officer. You got code 217, and that's military senior enlisted advisor. So your first sergeants, command sergeant majors, and stuff like that. Code 218, which is your military unit level enlisted HR advisor. And then code 219, which is for the military recruiters.
All right, so they got one for us. Good deal. Hey, how we looking on time, AJ?
So we're at 30 minutes right now. So I mean, we have a 60-minute window here, but if we're getting to a point where we're winding down, then that's fine too. So. Yeah,
I was hoping we can get some questions from the other audience members, and we don't have anything yet.
So right now, I just looked up. We have one question came in over the YouTube asking, what else can I do to be more competitive in the HR environment?
So I'll jump on this one real quick, AJ. So I'm looking on the other screen also, and this is Valerie. So Valerie, yep. Thanks for joining us here. So in terms of what you can do to be more competitive, it's a difficult situation to the whole catch-22 of you can't get experience without a job, and you can't get a job without experience in it. And one way you can do that, if feasible, is to find a local organization and volunteer some time. Do some intern type work for them, low cost to them, no cost to them, to build that experience, to gain additional relevance in the field. Sometimes it's a hard pill to swallow, especially when you've been a senior level person. As Ken was speaking about earlier, having very senior level employees within the military leaving the service thinking that they are entitled to sit for high level certification because of their experience in the military, and that's not always the case. So sometimes it's worth it to take that time to do some internship type work for a company to gain that experience. Especially if you're IT savvy and you're an HR person, offer to come in there and help them out.
All right, good comment, good. Yep. Excellent points. Excellent points. There are so many different ways that you can get into that. You can volunteer with some of the VSOs, the Veteran Service Organizations, actually performing some HR tasks. Also working with organizations like USO or some of the other family-oriented Army Community Services is another one as well for those soldiers on the military installations. Anything else, AJ?
We just had a question come in, looks like from Ben DeFay, potentially. It says RCI codes for officers. It looks like going back to what Jeremy had spoken to earlier.
Right, okay. So yeah, he already answered that question, right?
Yep. So those are the only 2 questions so far that have come in.
Okay, well, do you gentlemen have any questions of us here at O2O VCTP? I know you both are very familiar with our program. Anything that we can answer for you?
Just, I had one general question, Ken, and also for AJ. So, especially for the viewers that are out there, is the O2O VCTP program available at all active duty installations, or is it a select pilot group of installations at this time?
That's a great question, Jordan. In April of 2017, O2O actually merged with VCTP, the Veteran Career Transition Program. VCT is the predecessor to O2O, and it was initially established as a 100% online training program. Now, when O2O came on board, we actually have a presence, I believe it's 14 military installations at this point. But the rule of thumb that we use is any person that's eligible for the program who is within a 50-mile radius of the installation can actually participate in the O2O portion, and those outside of the 50-mile radius can participate in the VCTP portion, which is 100% online. The installation program offers a little more than the 100% online program. We actually launch our program as a cohort, and we provide supplemental training and professional development to our program participants in a classroom environment. Soldiers and family members who are part of the VCTP aspect of our program are not given the opportunity to participate in that unless they choose to travel on their own to the closer or the closest O2O facility. But as a general rule of thumb, those outside of the 50-mile radius can still participate. They just have to there's a different enrollment process for those outside of the 50-mile radius, and it doesn't come with some of the requirements that the O2O, those within the 50-mile radius, have to adhere to.
Okay, thank you. Is there a list anywhere that someone can look, especially for the viewers, again, a list of the installations where O2O is available?
Yeah, absolutely. If you go to our website, which is onward2opportunity-vctp.org, when you go to the website and you click on locations, it will identify the location of all of the active O2O sites that we have available.
Excellent, thank you.
Yeah.
You're on mute, AJ, I think. Yeah.
My apologies, I muted instead of went live. The only thing I would add in there to what Ken spoke to regarding O2O VCTP, and Ken experienced this having gone through VCTP when he did. VCTP historically had been just to get a certification for a service member or spouse to help them as they were looking to build out their resume. But at the end of the day, VCTP defines success as getting the service member, the participant, the certification. O2O, since it came about, we have historically defined success as not just getting somebody through the program, but also getting them on to a employer partner to get a job. So O2O, we've historically defined success as somebody who's been hired. With the merger between O2O and VCTP, VCTP has now picked up that definition of success as well. So when somebody does complete their training and get their certification, we also work to get them the opportunity to get in front of employers for potential employment opportunities, depending on what their intended outcome of the program is. So. That's right, definitely right. When Ken went through it as a participant, that wasn't part of it, but it now is.
Right there. A good point. Excellent point to add. And yeah, we have over 400 employer partners that are just standing by waiting to hire our O2O graduates. And when we say graduates, we're meaning those who actually complete the coursework. But we do have 4 different tracks that we offer: the customer service track, business administration, information technology, and then direct to employment. And we actually have a partnership with Hire Heroes USA, and they assist our program participants by helping them to build resumes, target resumes, job matching, and then ultimately sending them on interviews so that they can get hired as well.
Awesome.
Any additional questions? Anything else? Anything in the chat room, AJ? You're on mute. You're on mute, AJ.
My apologies. So Ben came back with the HRC codes question. He indicated that the only one provided was for a personnel officer, and he's asking about other officer positions such as like a company commander or a platoon leader, if there's any codes that they could utilize.
Not as of right now. No, there are not. So there are different codes on the list that can be used. They do have a other type of code. One of the things that I tell a lot of people when they call me is, the evaluations that you're going to submit with the application are really going to tell HRCI what you have done and what your professional HR work consisted of. And then also, letting people know that if it's not clearly defined in evaluations that, simple memorandum from records, especially for their military guys, signed by senior commanders, validating what the person actually done for the professional level HR work, will also help with the application process.
Great, thank you.
Now, Jeremy, I know that HRCI occasionally does audits of the applications. Yeah, because I think we just had one of our program participants who ultimately passed the PHR, but her application was audited as well. As part of the audit process, are you familiar with what steps they need to do to get through that audit?
Not with the steps, really. No, they have to show that they've done that professional level HR work. That's what HRCI bases it off of. And what they do, especially with the military, is they will walk the application over to me and hand me their evaluations that they use to verify their HR experience. And some of them, a lot of them aren't. They're not HR jobs at all. They might be, mid-level non-commissioned officer in charge, where yes, they had a few people underneath them and they had to do a little bit of paperwork for them and stuff like that, but not that professional level of HR experience that HRCI is actually looking for. So, like I said, they bring me the evals, and I basically let them know if it's something that actually qualifies what they're looking for.
Yeah, I recall seeing somewhere where it said that a professional HR position, one of the criteria is you have to perform that duty more than 50% of the time that you're working. Are you familiar with that?
No, I'm
50% of the time. Okay, all right. And that's something that you'll find on the HRCI website as well. It talks about if you perform that function more than 50% of the time that you are working, it said more than 50% on your job requirements are not, if you don't do it more than 50% of the time, then it's not really considered HR related. Sometimes you can get tasks with doing additional jobs, little odds and end jobs, like in the oily room who is not a 42 series. They probably run a strong chance of not being approved for that if they haven't been doing that more than 50% of the time that they actually are working. Anything else out there? Anything?
This is just a question for me, and that is regarding the history of your experiences. How far back can you go? If an officer potentially isn't a personnel officer, but they served as a battalion S1 4 years ago, is that still relevant?
Oh yeah, they can reach back as long as they have the supporting documentation to show that they did the job. The one thing I will say that people run into a problem with is trying to use their DD-214s to show that they did the job. It's not enough supporting documentation. Those evals and those memorandum for records saying what your job actually entailed is what's really required.
Thank you.
Well, AJ, at this point, I don't have anything else for Jeremy or Jordan. And unless they have any more questions, we could wrap this up.
Yeah, no, I just looked at the board. I don't think there's anything new that has come in. I sincerely appreciate you guys taking the time out of a day before the holiday, like today, and I know the information and knowledge that you shared will be very valuable in helping out our folks down the line. So this will be archived in the VetNet archive here at the IVMF and will be accessible to anybody down the road. Thank you for those that participated in the live streaming YouTube session part of it as well, and for your questions. That's really all I have. So thanks again. Enjoy your Thanksgiving holiday, and I'm sure we'll be in touch.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Have a good holiday.
Thank you.
Happy holiday.
Thanks, guys.
All right.